Why don't we start, we'll start down with. Who's down the end? Keith. Is he there?
He's here.
Start with you.
Okay, Mark Howell, present.
Paul Bowman, president.
Bill Cameza.
Kristen Arlen.
Toby Berkman, CBI facilitator. Vicky Alani.
Sen Viva.
Tom Combine.
Liz Martin, no?
Keith. Bert.
Yep, I'm here.
Jeff Collins.
Here.
Present.
Jeff Quick there.
Jeff Quick or.
Yep,
Dave?
present.
Good.
And David Owen, are you there?
David Owen, present.
Oh, good.
Okay, excellent. And Bruce Curls.
Okay, only Bruce.
Alrighty.
Chris,
Excellent.
sorry to interrupt. This is Jeff. There's a chatter on the meeting somewhere. Someone's got some background noise on.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear it too.
No, I said.
Everyone just should be muted who's not. We got it. Is that better? Folks online?
Hi, sir.
Sounds good, Toby.
I'm here. Sammy. Okay. Is that better, Jeff?
Yes, thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Okay, so, our goals for tonight's meeting are to get consensus, get approval, for the proposals document that we've all put together. We also want to share our perspectives on the fish passage memo that has come around. And, also agree on a plan for our public meeting, taking a look at the scheduling of it, the format, preparation for it. So 3 major things we need to talk about tonight. You can see our agenda, which is on the slide, which is with what I just talked about. And yes, and we will open the meeting to public comment in a few minutes, as noted, and then again at the end of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and a video link will be posted to the task force website in a few days. Did we want to approve the January 16, 2025 minutes, or did people have a chance to look at it, or is it too soon? Any comments? So then.
Good.
Ben, you make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 16, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul. Thank you so much. So let's take a vote. Why don't we start the same way? Keith, we'll go with you first.
Aye.
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 Aye as well.
Oh, I know you're gonna say, we need to identify ourselves.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
People should know this.
We don't have the minutes for approval on the agenda. I apologize,
Oh.
because they just went out, so.
And it was specifically said in Toby's email that we weren't going to approve it.
Okay, no.
Well, so I didn't mean.
Okay, so that's.
Like to enjoy
I read everything, so.
Okay, so we'll put that on hold for the next meeting. All right, Bill, public comments.
Sure, we're gonna open up for public comments, and again, I ask you to keep it brief, and again, no personal attacks. I hope you're not to tie us up in a lot of other things. Let us move forward. We have a good process. We're moving at a very good speed, I think. So open it up to public comment, please, no more than 2 minutes. Anyone want to make public comment at this point, or we'll do this again at the end of the meeting? Yes. Either one, sure. And identify yourself.
Mary Wonder. No,
Mary,
no.
Could I ask, just because we only have this hour right now, just come, if we have, area as close as possible. Yeah, even around, yeah.
Let's show the front area.
I would say. No, no attached, just history and research. Quick the history, you know, in the eighties, citizens put together a fantastic long-range plan for West Concord. Among it was making much use of all the waterways around Concord and use. After that came, Joanne Lloyd in the group doing a fantastic piece on Warner's Pond, and I see that Mrs. Giroux, Ruth Giroux was part of the original, stewardship committee. Then after that, we paid a consultant, when we had the first West Concord Advisory Task Force to do a whole book on all the things to be done in West Concord. And one of the, part of it is waterways, keep the waterways and use them. Then in 2020, our town, from town office of town manager, after they voted for to buy rural land, there was a survey going out, because I heard surveys going on. We did a survey, 3,602 responses, 70% all for these water activities and everything. So we've done a survey and with 602 responses, email and mail. And I was told by somebody, well, you know, you can always go to White Pond if we lose the pond here. Well, no, for a moment, you have to pay to get to White Pond, and then day passes are available. And this summer, there was a White Pond newsletter where they talked about havoc and mayhem with all the people that were trying to get in and turned away, and the police and the environmental police turning people away. It's a town with many different people in it. We have a lot of very wealthy people in it, and Giroux is for everybody, because this house, the magazine that came to us, they think they can afford these things. It's on sale for $13,200,000, but the part that got me interested in was, it says acres of woodland, acres of woodland of flood conservation land, and have access to Bateman's Pond. So there are people in town, and we grudge them, they have a lot of money, they have the pond. The only thing that I have after 45 years of living here is this wonderful park that would be free with access to sit there on a bench and watch the pond, the birds and the sunset. The last thing is that this is on the town website for all the staff to see, and this was sent to the Recreation Commission, because it's all this research that was done medically of the effects of a pond on the people in the community. And I'm going to ask the chair, if you.
Well, ask us. Now I'm not so sure.
This is on, they have all of this information. And I really, this was all stuff that's been researched. The name of the whole piece is called The Effects of Parks on the Well-Being of Communities. And the reason why it's so important is it talks about space. And blue space is identified as a pond. So with the, if you allow me to ask, Lee, who's the director of the Recreation Commission, and Bill, who's the chair, and Jess Porter, Alan from Public Works, sent them this whole file digitally.
Wow.
It's a lot of stuff for you to read, but I don't think if you just read this first one, you'll get the idea.
Okay.
Blue space, what it does to you emotionally and needed for everybody. And I did want to say, and this is personal, not to be personal with anybody, so I'll be personal to myself. I've lived here almost 46 years. I'm going to be 80 in 3 weeks. And to tell you the truth, this is an asset that I thought I would have. I feel to have it taken away, I'll tell you, this whole process is breaking my heart. I come here with a smile, but when I'm home, I'm very depressed and sad, because I thought after all these years, I could just enjoy my last years of Concord with an asset like this. Nothing personal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hannah Fellery, 343 Commonwealth. And I had two things I wanted to just say for the record. Earlier, a couple meetings ago, the survey that Brendan was on there came up. And people commented that they didn't really know the details about that. So that was done in September 2023. We opened the survey for about a month. We got 817 signatures, of which there were 593 Concord residents of voting age, so 18 plus. And then we also had an online survey. There were 500 signatures on that, and that was the max that we had, and then the survey just closed automatically. But there were 100 of those signatures came in after we submitted our paperwork to the select board. And then there were another 50 to 100 signatures that came in on paper after the select board meeting as well. So putting it all together, we think there were at least 900 signatures asking to slow down and reconsider saving the pond. And 600 of those anyway were Concord voting residents. So that's a good one there. The other thing is just that we've heard mention that people can recreate on frozen rivers and brooks. And I think that that's probably certainly true in some places, but I went out this Saturday and I took a picture of the Assabet where everybody walks their dogs, so it's still wide open, even though the pond has been frozen for 6 weeks. And this is just above the, this is Warner's, Shoulder Brook, just above the pond, and it still has open areas as well. So it's not frozen over, and you can't really recreate in it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
If you live on,
First, identify yourself.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm Denise Gilbert. I live at Concord Green and Concord. If you live on the other side of the two, and you've never seen Warner's Pond, about the cost and taxes and the practicality, I understand that you're worried about it. And anyone who sees me knows that I really want to save the pond, but it doesn't mean that I'm not sensitive to the other side. And I really want to thank everyone here for all of the time that you're putting into understanding the practical aspects. But there also is not only one person who's going to be 80, who's very attached to this pond. There are many people who are very attached emotionally to this pond. That is why we're here. So I simply want to say, please continue this work and please help to save this pond.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, back to you, Chris.
Okay, so, right.
Thanks, Chris. So, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item. Thank you to our members of the public for coming and for commenting. I do wanna just encourage everyone in the group to continue speaking loudly and clearly, right? It looks like the owls are both working. We're gonna be writing minutes from the recording. So important that we are audible. So we're gonna talk now about the proposal. The draft proposal document that was sent around that had the 3 alternatives that we're considering. And Chris said that our goal tonight is to arrive at a consensus. And what it means, our hope is that every task force member can leave tonight saying, at the very least, I can live with this document as a whole. Might not be perfect. I might think that it could be even a lot better, but I can live with it. I'm not going to oppose moving forward with this and sharing it with the public for the public meeting that we hope to have as soon as next month. So we'll be talking more about that later in the meeting as well. So that's our goal. That's the standard we're going to be using, and we really want to have every task force member at least be able to say that, if not actively support stuff. So we're not going to just plow forward if there are people opposing this strongly. Okay. So just as a reminder of what happened, we had a small drafting group that took feedback that was shared at the last meeting. There was also some written feedback that came in. And also those members of that group sort of had differences themselves, right, and their own comments and concerns about the document. They worked through it systematically, addressing a range of issues. Those were sent out in red line. This group at the last task force meeting, emphasized the importance of kind of trusting that group, that they would carry forward the interests that they represented and that they brought with them. And we arrived in that small group at a document that everyone in that group felt like they could live with, that addressed the core concerns, that addressed some of these factual differences and issues that had been raised, right, to make sure everything is accurate, et cetera. So that's where we are. So the plan for today is, first of all, just to check, are there any questions about the changes, the draft changes, that you feel like you need to have answered in order to know if you can live with this document? And if the answer is that is no, like no burning question, we're gonna test it and see, can everyone live with it? Because anyone can't, and if not, what do we need to change, right, for that to work? There also might be, factual errors or typos or little issues that just need to be corrected. And so I think we should certainly raise those and address them. And so, we can say, assuming that, factual issues are addressed, can you live with it, right? And we'll then get to those and make sure we tie up all those things. So that's the plan. I want to just check in with my co-chairs as well, and the messages you might want to share about them.
Well, I won't say personally, it's good to keep in mind that none of these proposals are wrong. We may think that's not wrong, we would support, that's fine. These are the best proposals, that group could come up with. What they looked for, in that small group, I think were not just what was factual, but how the facts are being interpreted and how they're being maybe pushed a little bit to the edge and bring some back and moderate some to make it fit for everyone to live with it. So I think that was important. I don't know, Chris, if you have anything to say about this?
I think there was a lot of to and fro, in the meeting, and people were willing to negotiate and work with each other and go back and talk to, at least somebody else in their group to help them sort through some of the issues that we were talking about. There's still some issues that haven't been fully, agreed to yet, which they're the caveats that we talked about, which is having to do a little bit with the costing and that we still need to discuss today and want your feedback on it. Is this what we all want to do or not? But we will get into that as well. But I think overall, it was a very successful, I think, small group process.
I'd like to know if Jeff, if you and Keith could speak up. Jeff, do you have anything you can say?
Yeah, and I'm sorry not to be there with you right at the end of my street, but I'm sick, so didn't want to get anybody else sick. So agree with Bill and Chris, and thanks to Bill and Chris, Toby and Rachel especially, and also Keith for all your work on it, but for the sort of chairs and facilitators for keeping us going. I would only say specifically the members of the dam removal committee, I didn't speak for you, so if you have points or questions or whatever, don't feel like, oh, I guess Jeff agreed, or even whatever. And the same for other members who weren't in that small group, and that's the point of this meeting.
Yeah, I was grateful for the opportunity to work in that group, and I do think the dialogue and the back and forth we had was actually pretty productive by the end. So I thought we did good work.
So we designated, an hour for this conversation, and I think we're hopeful that we can address issues that come up in that hour, and get this in place to move forward. So I'll just say, I'm gonna, as needed, make sure we're staying on task, moving towards what we need to do to get aligned on this and address any of the issues that come up. But I guess the first question to the group is, do you need an explanation of anything before we move forward? Yeah, so please, that's great, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just an icebreaker. So first of all, I really think this doing this in one document and coming to somehow something that is reflecting the different opinions was a major piece of it. So he, staff and everyone involved, just thank you for doing this. I only have one clarification question. And there might have been some thinking behind that. So on page 4 under cost, which is still the overview section, I would have expected to see some kind of a simple table comparing the cost of different scenarios on high level, even as ranges, to say scenario 1 ranges from 1 to whatever, scenario 2 ranges from 2, and then referring to the appendix. Right now, I feel it's in the appendix. As a reader, I feel lost about how do I really compare this cost. So there might have been a reason for not having a simple table. So that is the one question.
If you want to respond on that, or?
We talked about that, explicitly, and, I think that was something we wanted to bring up to ask them how best to handle that. I think we were a little concerned that if you lead with costs by page 4, that some people might not read the rest of the proposal if it just comes down to the dollar signs. So we're trying to think about how do we avoid that, if that's a real concern.
Right now, it reads like you're hiding the cost.
Yeah,
It's the opposite.
well, also, I thought that that's a good point. We were thinking that the thing about cost was a sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for? There's just sort of not a warning, but a suggestion that's much more complicated than people would think.
Yeah.
That's what was supposed to be there. And then the notion was, I don't know if we got there, what was to make sure in the appendix that it was very clear. And I'm not sure, we have to look at that, see whether it is very clear. And I'm not, we should think about that. I think that was the other factor. The other thing you should know is when we start talking about the actual event, the public event, we're thinking, we're gonna ask each group come up with a 4 or 5 page slide deck. And so it'll very clearly, you're gonna have, you only can have one cost, it'll be at most 1 page. So the other notion is to simplify this even further, because our thought is that even though this document will go out to everyone, the majority of people are not gonna go through all this. They're gonna look at a much simpler deck, which is gonna give them the information that they need, like exactly what you're saying. But maybe if there's a way of getting a small chart, to show that, fine,
And again, it could be ranges.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff is unknown or different scenarios.
That's also where it's complicated. So,
But you have a lot of already text there that says, okay, things are moving and unknown, which is at the moment very hard for readers. Going to the appendix and say, okay, how do I compare number scenarios? Okay, so it looks like you're hiding or we're hiding.
No, maybe you want to. No,
The problem with putting it in the appendix is very few people read appendix. And so I wouldn't say it feels as though we're hiding it, we're just putting it somewhere where people won't find it. So I think to at least have something in the body of the text. It shouldn't be specific and it shouldn't be, committing that this is what it's going to cost, but at least to be able to say, well, this is in the ballpark of X, this is Y, this is Z. If it's possible, I mean, obviously, if it's not.
so let's hear a specific, what I want is a specific proposal, right? That the group can then decide if that's what they want to do.
Because I was gonna,
Right.
what are you thinking should be in that?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Should it just be, like, for instance, for dam removal, should it just be dam removal? And then the other different things that you want to add to
No,
that,
just
right? I mean,
one range. There's one range, then remove, the saying the proposals described below, and with more information in the appendix. Range for dam removal from X to Y, range for dredging from Y to whatever, range for, the third one from that, just that people get a sense about the range, and you can even say that they're perhaps a comment to say what is the major kind of missing cost next to it, but that's it. A very simple 3 lines table
Okay, let's go around and give reactions. Paul, you had your hand up below, go ahead.
I agree with that, to simplify it, is the cross communication, you don't want to convey an exactitude, but having a lot of information, that sort of implies that. We really nail this down, but I think a range, remember, cost is important, but it's only one of the criteria that we're communicating. It may not be, at this point, it may not be the most important, it's a constraint. And we have to communicate the other aspects of these proposals, what it is, what the benefits are. And costs come into that, so I want to downplay the exactitude of the costs, the ranges are fine. And I think the reader will say, this is the lowest cost, this is the highest cost, it's in between, and that's fine at this stage.
I saw a couple more hands, let's keep on this, and yeah, so I see Vicky and then Keith, Keith, you've been wanting to say something, let's go.
I think one of the challenging things about the cost is. If you look at the table, some are annual recurring costs, some are like 5-year recurring costs, so I'm just wondering how do we wanna. Summarize that in a range. With the one-time costs, so I guess that's one of the reasons we got stuck on.
Yeah, so. One thing you're right now on another proposal for public works, we're looking at a 10-year cost. That could be it. You're saying, what is the 10-year cost, right? And then you cover the initial plus 10 years of maintenance.
So we consider, the proposal suggestion is a range that says the one-time cost plus recurring cost for 10 years.
Yes.
All right, Vicky.
Well, I'll start with one of commending, because I think this is the closest I've seen so far in this year that we've been together to something that feels like the task force. Is getting close to being able to support, so thank you. Because I wasn't sure, a month ago how we were gonna get to this point, but here you
I
are.
remember.
Great job, great job. You know, it took a month, so I love that. I think, to me, related to the cost, I worry when you publish a cost, no one will ever forget it. So if you say something is worth $1 million, even if you come back to them and say, this is only an estimate, we're not sure, it might be 1 year, it might be 5 years, it's not really relatable, what a year, and I know this from. When we put in a proposal, we say somebody's just gonna go right to the back and see what the bottom line is and not read the first 27 pages of what you put in. But once you say a number, it's when it's sticking in people's mind. So I do fear a little bit of what you said, is that we put it too early and it feels like it's rock solid, which it's not. None of our costs right now are rock solid. They're not comparable to each other. One's 1 year, one's 5 year, one's 10 year, one's recurring. It was really hard for the public to understand what those numbers are without an explanation. So I do worry about coming in and saying, let's look at 3 costs. Dam removal is this, dredging is this. Please read below to see how to compare those costs. I don't know that anyone will read, so that I will put that out there. The other thing, I think, one way to kind of appease the idea of how do people even go with the cost is right in the beginning, when we say these are the 5 criteria, we say, what's the sustainability, see appendix B. Like if somebody really wants to go to the bottom line, you just say, go to page 75 and they're gonna right down to the bottom and start looking at that page. So you send them there, we're not hiding anything. You go ahead and you send them there, if that's what they're really looking for, but you say to them, there's all kinds of other criteria that we are supporting here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 come before 5 in the Vision Conquer document, and they come before fiscal sustainability in our report, so it follows the Vision Conquer outline. And to me, that was really nicely done by the subgroup, so,
So I hear us kind of circling around 2 potential ways forward here. So in a minute, I'm gonna put them to the group. And I think we can see where, the most support lies, and I'm hoping that folks can live with where we end up. But I want to hear from you, Liz, on your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, so I think I agree that like the beginning section feels like very locked in, or it seems, because it's so hard to compare, putting it very early seems challenging. I do like Sven's idea that like we take these recurring 5-year costs and try to come up with a 10-year, and I wonder if kind of appease what the idea that like no one really makes it to the appendix, like can you put it as like a line item under, just like top line, here's what we're thinking over 10 years, the details are in the appendix, but instead of it being in that like intro section where it feels so like, like, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, like, it feels much more like weighted. In that intro, but if you have it just like as a line, like kind of even after all the stuff that's like, I think most of the cost and funding sources say, like in the appendix, you're gonna see all this, but like just after, even after that being like, you know, the estimated 10-year cost is, and then a range, again, not obviously like but I think it is, that 10-year idea is a good way of
Yeah,
trying to compare apples to apples.
okay, Paul and Bill.
Yeah, so staying at a high level, I think comparing to orders of magnitude and ranges is fine. In reading through these, one of the stumbling blocks, I think, for me is in the enhanced management proposal. It's sort of, okay, here's what we do now, but what comes next? Maybe nothing comes next, or maybe we're gonna have to revert to one of these other options. It's very hard to articulate beyond 5 years, because I think that's a 5-year concept. What happens beyond 5 years? So I think we need to stay in the time frame of the enhanced management proposal. Because beyond that, we don't know.
So you would make it a 5-year recurring.
Well,
Well, you know what, Paul, on the, if you look at the spreadsheet we developed for our group, we have a 5-year, then we have a 10-year. To go all the way out. So we have, I was just looking at this, I'm sorry, this is the enhanced management group.
What do you do from 5 to 10 years?
So we just added 5 more years of maintenance.
What if after 5 years you find out that it's working?
Because this is a projection, as people often say, you know, after 5 years, any projection you build, any financial projection, it's not worth much anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the other proposal assume there's sort of a steady process. This one may be a.
Well, we could say, why don't you make it 5 years?
I don't know what to do about it. It's just. It's
No, no, I
happening back.
guess.
Right.
So whatever we want to do, that's fine. It's just.
Well,
Go ahead, then I see our chime in as well.
just to give the alternative, you know, the recurring management plan, if we followed what Sven is suggesting, we would have said that let's see, if we give a 10-year, should I do 5 years, to give you an example, or 10-year, 5? We would have said, okay, our prices would range, and this would include both one-time and annual, from 519,300 to 1,589,300. That would be the line, and then I would have an asterisk saying, check the table at the end to find the details on that. That would seem simple enough to me.
Yeah.
You have a better color chart than the one.
Yeah, let me, well, I can make it viewable.
What I have.
But to get my point on this.
Yeah, yeah.
This continuity. Yeah.
Just take 5 or 10, I don't care.
So my suggestion.
All right, Mark, go ahead, yeah.
My suggestion might be to, I noticed that every one of these plans has some options.
Yes.
There's sort of the base case and then, you know, option A, B, and C that can be added to that. And I would like to suggest that one way to kind of combat the technique that Vicky was talking about is to make a table that has, you know, plan A, options 1, 2, and 3, plan B, options 1, 2, and 3. So you have to go actually figure out what those are. But the town is used to budgeting in terms of capital and operating costs. And so I would suggest trying to, you know, create a column like that says, what are the, you know, let's call it 9 just for simplicity, 9 versions of this base plus 2 options. And then 5 years, or if we wanted to, 10 years, but 5 is probably enough. It identifies both the capital and the operating cost by year. So that then it's possible to say, okay, if we do plan B1, it's gonna cost us so much in capital in the first year, and the operating is gonna be some other number. And then the second year, it's gonna be only operations or whatever that table rolls out to be. That, I think, gives people a sense of what's sort of the order of magnitude of the expense and when is the expenses likely to occur. And is it, you need a big chunk all at once, and then it becomes relatively little. Versus do you need, you know, an ongoing stream of revenue that has to be budgeted every year? I think that's a useful visualization, and I believe it could be done on a page that would be presentable. If the options again are coded, and then you have to go in and, you know, figure out, oh yeah, the plan I like is B3, so go look at that.
It doesn't be, I think they have to pass a few, these different things. On page 4, we are still in the summary
Yeah.
level, so we should not get too granular on the summary, so the range. We could propose, because that was another thing here, the current appendix is so granular that we could have another appendix starting before you get all the granularity of every kind of thing, where your table
Yeah,
is there, that you can go more into that you have another appendix table that shows more
yeah. That's
Detail.
not what jumped off the page.
things, because I would not make this detail, I wouldn't recommend to make a detailed
Yeah,
thing in the summary part. That's one.
Yeah, so I hear, well, where I hear us kind of revolving around a couple different possibilities here, okay? One proposal that I think is sort of like, just put all the costs in the intro, and I think I've heard like other approaches that maybe could be more broadly palatable to the group than naming those costs right up top, right? And two that I've heard, right, that seem like they might be more broadly palatable, you will tell me, would be, well, first of all, what is the high level cost we're sharing? It seems like I hear people revolving around a base case, like a base proposal plus the added elements, and a kind of one-time fixed cost plus annual costs, right? That are then also added up for 5 years, right? So that's gonna take in the what Mark just named. And I've heard one option would be have a single table in, you know, or one of the top appendices before the detailed cost tables that list the proposals, just as I laid out, one page, right? With just the high level cost and the range, right, according to the different possible elements. And the other that I've heard is doing that within the cost section of each proposal, right? So not in the introduction, but within each proposal, a high level summary of what the costs are. Maybe that could also link to the appendix at the end, the comparisons. But that's what I'm sort of hearing, what we seem to be circling around. Is that an accurate reflection of where you all are? And what we think might work?
100%.
So
So I said it, but we are hearing more understanding is a very simple range table on page 4. Again, it's not the, this is page 4. Yeah, so we have written a lot of other things. And then have a more detailed table where you say capital costs, running costs on the different scenarios as appendix, whatever, just before all the super granularity costs. So that is my understanding.
Right.
And then
So you're holding to, you'd like to see that in the introduction if possible.
I don't like the word holding it. I think it's good to get a sense on page 4 when we talk about the cost, what is the thing, referring to more detailed comparison, then you can go. Right now, to be honest, anyone reading this is really possible in these appendixes to compare the costs right now?
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would love to have you look at this and see if this could be a model for all your templates. Try this. It's what we use, a base plan, and you can see the amount for one time annual 5-year total. I'll scroll down to further to the next level. So there's the amount, that's the
This would
5
be
year.
the entry and.
There's the base plan, that's, everyone has to do that, that's the first year plan if you want the base plan. All right. For 1-5, right, now, well, don't scroll too far, one back, that's it. Now, we added the damn maintenance plan for that. And then we put that, in. And then, now the total is, that's the base plan plus this maintenance plan. All right, scroll down further. And a person could add these up. And then there's the potential fish passage, and that's the second point, the second base, which would be added in. There's a third one like that too, right? And I think at some point, maybe we can put it in. No, okay, but, so you, and then our first.
Total of base and scenario.
And scenario three. So, but that doesn't count scenario one and scenario two.
Yeah, you could,
But you can add all three of them up right away and see what the amount is. I don't know if we aren't looking for a common template.
How would that work for dredging? How would this concept?
Okay, I would say you have three, in a number of scenarios, you have a base, well, I don't know what the base plan would be for dredging.
Well, there's three different dredging.
Three different options.
But
And then
generally, yeah, generally the dredging plan is differs in how much upfront investment you need to make because of it's driven by the volume that you're dredging. And then, I don't know, but there may be some difference in the maintenance cost depending on how much you have dredged. What's left over.
That's not much. You could say scenario one is the base plan for dredging, whatever it is, 35,000 cubic yards. Base two is the 50,000 cubic, there we are, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Base two,
The three,
and then base three,
that's basically it.
yeah.
That's.
Yeah,
and then they also have, moving down here, they have, so this is, now they have a charter, they're reporting on both, right? And then down here, they have maintenance and improvement, so they have fish package, recreation, recurring costs related to invasive safety. Right,
I would get them to put that back into their annual maintenance.
right.
I just think that's what's really important is we have one common template.
I agree.
This needs to be done. I think everybody has to, each of the groups has to agree what they need in that.
Right,
template.
right.
You guys may have less.
I
but
understand,
that
yeah.
might be different,
That's
but it all needs to come out with a common.
Yeah, I
template.
agree.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Figure out what those columns are, that needs to get reported.
I think we have a pretty good sense based on this conversation, what that template is. I think it's a version of a base proposal, right? Possible add-ons, both one-time and recurring costs.
Well, I think
Right.
Mark's point, the way the town does it is they have, capital costs and
operating.
operating.
Sure, so we could,
We should do it the same way the town
Sure.
reports.
But back to Sven's point, on the front page, on that first page, I think if you follow what he's suggesting, I'm not against it, would be your base cost, which would include your annual and your capital, because the person's not gonna spend a lot of time looking at this. What is the base cost? And then what is the 5-year cost? That's the two numbers you wanna see, with an asterisk saying, check out the appendices if you want more information. And everyone should have those things. What's your base cost? What's your 5-year cost?
Question of timing. At this point in our process and our deliberations, our communication with the public, how deeply do, I mean, ultimately, the end game, we have to really know this and be good. Is this all important for the next phase, which is our communication?
Yes.
Is that where we're headed?
Yes,
Is this neat?
yes.
Yeah.
I think we are talking about
Okay.
with the mind, yeah.
Here's
No,
what
no,
I think, I think you prepare this document. I think you prepare this document, you have it for the public. Majority of people may not read it all, they're probably gonna read the deck that we put together. Which is fine, but we have to be able to let them go back and see the what's behind it.
It's also
So
be
I
important to
wanna
have some.
take something to the group right now, because I think I want us to press forward. I think we've talked about this, it's been good discussion, I think the ideas have been aired. I think it seems like we want a single table that brings all these costs together in one place, right? Some that kind of reflects what the marked version of this.
More we want to see.
Okay, what am I not hearing? I wanna get.
I
I
think
think
the first
we're all-
output said that you want template,
Yes.
You've got it.
that's the most important. And then from the template, and everyone fills out the template, then we can find, if we can work out another appendices that includes Mark's, what Mark is suggesting and breakdown, that's fine. But the template, I think the key is gonna be the template.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're, Right.
As long as all of them look the same. and you can
okay,
Compare one to the
So-
other.
sounds like we will do a template, right, and get these cross comparisons ready.
And I would certainly be okay with Mark, with Sven's suggestion, which was having the numbers on that
So let me just ask, if we do, so just the template thing, right? Let's say that change has been made, okay? There are a number of different options that have been raised, right? About how we treat costs in the body of the document, we have a single appendix, et cetera. Let's say we'll decide on one of those in a couple minutes, but is there anyone for whom the decision on that piece, right, assuming that we have the template and that's been implemented effectively? Is anyone for whom the question of sort of how this is treated in the body of the document, is it like a deal breaker for you, like you couldn't move forward unless it's a certain way? Okay,
I would prefer it not be before we start talking about it.
right, yeah, so I get
Force
it,
people to
yeah,
read,
yeah.
maybe at the end of each proposal.
Yeah.
It says proposal one, here's our. cost
Right.
template. Proposal two, here's our.
Yeah.
cost. Whether there's a summary somewhere or not is a question.
So I just want to be clear, though, it sounds to me like, this isn't like, we get the template, the appendices are clear. We're not moving this forward, right? Is what I'm hearing. So then it's just a question of, are we gonna name this in the intro or another place, right? Or, in the body, or none of the above, just in the appendices. And I don't have like a simple way to do that. I maybe suggest maybe we just do a straw poll and go forward with whichever of those options seems the most, have the most support from groups, if it's not a deal breaker for anyone. So options could be simple naming of the highest level range of costs in page 4, the intro, right? Yeah, so page 4 is the intro section on cost. Okay. Option 2 could be, option 2 could be just leaving them in the appendix, right? And then option 3 could be having them in, sorry, I'm not going to find it. Here it is, there we go. And option 3 could be, putting them within each individual proposal's cost section, or just a high level top line range. Okay, that's what I'm hearing, 3 options. You guys agree? Okay. So could we just do a straw poll on this and move forward to one of those, acceptable group? Okay. I don't, do I need you guys need to do this?
Well, I'll tell you, my problem is on this one with construction, I remember how much time we spent on this as a group.
Yeah.
And we came to this conclusion, even though I like Sven's idea, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
that's my, no. Go ahead, call for
Okay, so, well, I don't know formally, this is a vote, it's a trouble. All right, so
Sense of what people are.
let's just get a sense of the group, who would most prefer, okay, so so we're gonna have a common format for the appendices, right, we're gonna do that.
Right, that's a good.
Then the question is, would you like this in some top level range, right, from X to Y, right, for each of the alternatives named in the insert section that we're looking at right now? Would you like that named within the actual description of costs in the body for that proposal, right? So that's option 2, and then option 3 is just leave it in the appendix. Okay. And I think this seems to further so who most prefers option 1 among voting?
Just like clarification.
Yeah.
In the introduction,
Yeah.
or any that, will the readers see what, understand what the proposals are? No, so they're just gonna see what, they're gonna see cost before they actually know it.
We do name, that's a great question. In the introduction, we name that there are 3 proposals, right? Right, so you can see here, recurring common management, dam removal, dredging and dam removal. Right, so we name that that's what they are, we name that there are recreational improvements associated with them.
Can I just interrupt that too?
Yeah,
What the original notion was by having costs, recreation and wildlife, that these were categories. We were saying to people, look, when you're reading these proposals, this is the general statement, you may find some things that may be slightly different from one proposal to another, and here are the reasons why. And we named, and so we worked out a statement on wildlife, worked out a statement on cost, and a statement on recreation. That's what they're supposed to be. The, kind of the general notion, these are the things to be aware of in the reading further along.
Thanks.
So just my question is the notion of having a summary without having some sense of some detail. I mean,
Right.
you say the three, it's a little bit jarring. I think a summary of the cost needs to appear, but whether it needs to appear in the introduction is another question. Should it?
Then you wouldn't vote for one.
Well, I wanted clarification.
You want to clarify?
Vote?
Yeah. And this isn't a formal vote, this is just a drop poll, and then we'll see if everyone can live. All right, so,
So voting one is to say,
yeah,
you agree to a common template, you do the language as it is that correct?
so option one is we're gonna put in the top level range of costs
Oh, I see.
within the section we're looking at right now.
All right.
This is page 4.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna test who among voting members most prefers that option. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, and anyone online raising your hand for that?
I would be comfortable with that in paragraph form.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay,
something like enhanced maintenance has a minimal to maximum clause,
Mhm.
depending on options, dam removal has minimal to maximum, and dredging has minimal to maximum, just so that there's without a lot of detailing, but just, sort of. I think that's consistent with what Bill was saying by sort of explaining that there's some differences here in terms of what they accomplished, but what the starting point is and what they might lead to overall, I think is useful information. If we can.
Take the vote again.
yeah, just have the next comment, we'll do the voting for again in a minute, but yeah.
Just like an expanded idea for 2, I'm just thinking it might be helpful to address Ben's request, but each section summarizes the cost, but then we create a new section after all the proposals, which is the cost section that actually compares them in the table.
Right, like a
We can create a new section that summarizes everything side by side, but you've had a chance to read them all in advance with full context, and then you can just, there's a table of contents, you can go to the cost summary.
Yeah, somewhere we need to be able to compare.
But I think,
Possible.
but I think that makes more sense after each section's had a chance to walk you through the details.
Does that suggestion get us aligned? I mean, we can do the straw poll, and there you go. That's option 4. All right,
So option 4. Is a little bit different, yes, right? So option 4 is after the 3 proposals, you're saying, what
You do a summary cost.
You summarize the cost of each proposal at the end, and then create a new section that compares them equally in a table. Like a cost analysis section.
In a common template like Bill.
right.
Yeah, and then you can do the template.
Since we're doing a common template, it's gonna be easier to come up with.
One of the reasons we put it in the appendix is the layout, the amount of information doesn't really fit on 8.5 by 11 pages. You know, that's another challenge.
Yeah.
But maybe we can do that.
Okay, let's just do the straw poll and we can solve it that way, great. We want to combine some of these
Oh,
offers.
you gotta read that and follow over your face. No. Okay, all right, okay. I'm just gonna say it's good.
Wait.
Right, go over here.
All right, so option 1.
Can I- wait,
right,
can I just clarify what, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I hate doing this, it's just clarifying an option. So Keith, are you saying this, not put it in the individual sections at all, and just have it that one section, or have a throw, like a high level and then a deeper detail? And then
Reverse, like a detailed cost analysis of each proposal
in a cost section at the end,
end of each proposal, yeah.
In the appendix, yeah.
at the end of each proposal, not at the end of the whole thing. Okay, sorry.
And then create a new section in the proposal.
Okay.
that Summarizes.
So you'd see it in
all
both places.
three Together.
I see.
So you'd see it in 2 places.
You see it in two places.
Okay. Awesome.
In the body
Thank
of
you.
the text, you have a high level for that proposal,
Sure.
right, at the end of the proposal.
Yep.
And then you also have the detailed appendices at the end.
Yeah,
And you also have a single table at the end that compares them.
that compares all three. That's the
Okay,
last,
so there's
that's the
three
last
additions.
thing you read.
Right, three additions.
I'm fine with that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's option four. So make that option four. Okay, we'll make that option four, but we're gonna start, who supports option four that Keith just laid out?
Let's do it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that,
Anybody know?
anyone on?
Yeah, but I can't afford to make all
Okay, okay.
Four, three.
Who supports? I don't see anyone online raising their hand. I think that to me feels strong enough with confidence to do that, so.
Yeah, it's a good compromise.
The name, the approaches at the end of each proposal, right, I'm just reiterating, we're going to name the high level range of costs for that proposal, right? In the appendices, you're going to have a new appendix that is a one-page table that compares those high level costs throughout the proposal. And then the additional appendices will be reformatted, so they're all using the same template, largely based on the recurring content, the approach, the changes that Mark together.
All
All right, look at that. We.
Wow, never on page 4, Sven.
I only had a simple question.
Oh, yeah.
No, but that was a big issue.
That's true, that was very.
Okay,
Can we move to the,
yeah, we're gonna move on, okay?
I have two simple needs for clarification.
Great.
What is in our, I mentioned this in our dredging proposal, we give 3 different options, but we really don't talk about why there are 3. I mean, and there are 3 because in option 1, you get this much open water, option 2, more open water, option 3. It's as simple as that. We have to explain that each option gives us more open water. We don't have to quantify it necessarily, so we need that clarification, correct? Which is missing in there.
So I wanna be specific here, so here's the dredging proposal, okay? We, name, okay, that we have these 3 different alternatives, right, A, B, and C. We say, all options will profit dredging the pond, the top is not yet formally deliberated on these separate options, so all 3 are included below for public consideration, and then we have the different dredging amounts, right, that represent the 3 different proposals. So are you suggesting?
We don't say why there are
What's
3
the
different.
pros and cons?
Okay.
It's a really simple.
Okay,
You get more open.
so we should
Is that the
say,
only thing you get? I mean, that's, it would be good to understand. Is that the only thing you get, like, is it longer? Does it last longer? I mean, because.
Well, we have to think about that. What are
What are the benefits?
More water, it's probably more sediment, more phosphorus, more.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, well. But it's, I think it's an easy fix.
So I think those questions are addressed in the proposal itself, like it does talk about, you know, if you dredge more, that you would have a longer
Where
lasting,
does it
because,
say that?
it's,
More than detail.
it's more, it's not right up front. I don't know exactly where it is, but
People understand why. you
I
want
think some of it.
3 options. Yeah.
yeah.
Don't really explain.
Maybe it's be restructuring.
maybe we just say here, right, to get to Paul's point, right, you can write the sentence for me, but I don't think there's controversial, right, the larger dredges, dredging large, like more cubic yards, right?
Provides greater open. Yeah.
You make the more sediment, phosphorus removal, and potentially the longer.
And potentially longer,
Longer lasting.
yeah.
We'll quantify it.
Second, to lead to more open water and a longer
Potentially longer.
duration of benefits, but we'll have like greater costs. and greater financial.
Yeah, sounds fun. It
Yeah.
seems to me that That's definitely implied by the figure, the image that's on page 19, but the next page after one.
No, it's in the graph, I'm just saying the
Yeah.
words aren't there.
Yeah, the words aren't there, but I think that,
But it's okay. Well, I'll leave it anyway.
It's a simple thing.
yeah, right. Okay.
And the other point, it may not be a simple fix, it refers to the enhanced management. The statement here is that, page 7. And the statement, in addition, there are future development events that could have significant impact on the pond and the growth moving forward, but have yet to be clarified. And it mentions development Terrell Park and that property. Well, those two certainly haven't been resolved, but it's not clear to me what the impact of those would be. On the pond, and I'm not saying they're not, that needs some clarification. You have two statements. It needs some examples.
It's clarified
For example,
There's some, one of the things that clarifies it just be density, more people, using recreation, and one of the other.
So up top, yeah,
right, that was more over housing, there was, that wasn't related to MCI or to
Unless there's more house.
I'm just asking for a little clarification,
Yeah, yeah.
examples. For example, rather than just have a statement in there.
So the last line of that paragraph, which is at the top of page 8, I think is the rationale for that. The proposal suggests that it would be most helpful for the town to gain more clarity on these issues before deciding whether or which more capital intensive substantial interventions to pursue.
Yes, but that doesn't say, it doesn't link, doesn't say why. Why do we need more clarity?
So, Paul, what are you, so I'm where we are again.
I understand,
Page 9. Okay.
Top of page 8, bottom of page 7, top of page 8.
Okay. Great, and so,
I mean, if the MCI answers more use, more density, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
on Jero, I'm not sure the impact and development
More
of Jero
density.
would be on that option or any.
okay, so maybe, I mean, I'm just. Right, and potential impact on density.
Yeah.
Right? Could be there, right, Giroux Park. You're just kind of wondering, what is the impact?
Impact of this, the end use, that's fair. It just means that.
Yeah.
And then on Jero, I'm not sure if the.
Yeah.
It's an important linkage, but I'm not sure.
More people using the trail.
Yeah, that's
That
the other thing that got
have more
dropped.
people wanting to use the pond, if the pond is there, or access to the pond.
Attracting more to people to the park or using the pond.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a linkage as well. So I think there's a simple clarification. Just needs-
Right, is that? No, look, sorry, I don't know if you can see this, I just added in text here. In front. Address it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good, I'm looking at everyone else. Just a little hand that I can see, yeah, Julia.
So I just have two questions that I need some clarification on page 11. The third bullet talks about the viability and cost of designing and constructing an effective fish passage. The statement is that it hasn't been fully vetted and it hasn't been, but I think that the tech memo that we just recently received on fish passage provides a little bit more detail
Yeah.
that we should probably weave into that.
Can you remind me, Julia, what is, I'm looking for the text and I'm not seeing it.
So third bullet, it says the viability and costs of designing and constructing an effective fish passage have not been
Yeah.
fully vetted and established. And it talks about the DMF.
Structure changes.
That's exactly wrong now, yeah.
Well, I think because we have conceptual, very conceptual costs. I think we should just reference it in that bullet and we can put in that fish passage memo as an appendix.
So what would you say, how do you describe it? The task force would receive conceptual information on design and cost?
I would just say a technical memo on, a conceptual design and costs for two types of potential fish.
And I would leave with that sentence, you just created at the end of it. And then say that but the viability and the full cost and the effectiveness is not been fully vetted, something like that.
Right,
Right.
and then see appendix XX.
Yeah.
And then the second question that I had is on, page 29, and it's a question for the dam removal group. So the 6th bullet says permitting would be required from the NRC to construct the boardwalk necessary to complete the loop trail crossing the current inlet of Neshoba Brook into the wetlands. But
Needs to be.
take it, okay, that's
Yeah,
what I
there,
thought.
there are a couple references to the boardwalk that need to come out, because I saw one later on.
Because the graphic in this does not
Yeah.
include the board, okay.
You
Right.
did it.
So sorry, is there any text that needs, I'm looking at this whole thing that was removed, I don't think that's what you're referring to. But is there any?
If you probably just search on boardwalk,
There's one down in the proposed future amenities, the fourth part. There's number 4.
Where is it, Liz?
Hang on, I don't know what page it is, hang on.
This is not gonna be deleted.
On page 27. You have proposed future amenities, just the last sentence, since we're not gonna. Just pull out that last sentence. But I think this is a different place that Delia saw it.
I saw it on page 29.
There's red line version and non-red line.
The red line.
Oh, sorry, I'm on the clean version to get the page number.
I have it up for you.
I can't read the red line version. It's too much.
Okay, 28. You're,
Oh, I think you just missed, you just went by it.
what?
Last, you're right there.
And.
Oh.
End of point 4.
Oh, it's out in that, okay. Well, it was still in the clean version, so.
No, right, so we deleted the sentence on boardwalk just now.
Oh, we
Okay,
just
so
did.
go down to the next page.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bullet. Permitting will be required from NRC. Just take that out.
Yeah. Great, thank you, good catches. Okay, does that address the boardwalk issue?
Seems.
Think so.
Yeah.
All right,
Cody, I just said one too, we were talking the other day, we had that photo, chart or picture of where the sonotubes are gonna be somewhere. We talked about putting that onto the one that we were just looking at the other day. Well, I saw tubes, where they had the geotubes, where can we could insert that, it's a great picture to show where the dewatering would take place.
Yeah.
So we'd like to add that.
We could put that as an appendix, Sunco and Charters
Yeah,
bids as appendices.
someplace.
Yeah.
so there's the image of geotubes.
Yeah.
that Came in during the charter bid.
Yeah.
Sunco bid.
Some go bids,
We'd like to get that
Yeah.
group, like,
that the group would like to put in. Any concerns with that?
Yeah, I'm okay putting the.
just put it, it's just the next picture.
Can we see it at
Yeah.
council?
You'll see.
Sure, we can.
I don't have it right here, we'll show it to you, it's a good chart.
Add some show.
Picture.
Pictures.
Yeah, right.
And. All right. Great.
Can I have a clarification, where it says under, dam removal, it says dam removal phase 1, dam removal phase 2, is that, are those costs the design report? Or it makes it read like it's, you're actually moving the dam in 2 phases?
You remind me where you are in the cost for
Dam removal.
Okay. So here we go, I'm getting there. So we have dam, right?
Phase 1, dam phase 2, what is that?
Can someone from the dam removal group explain what that is?
We're not sure.
I think those elements are straight out of a Sumco response to our request for information, so they could tell us more. I don't know what the phase 1 and phase 2 are. Could be wrong about that.
It's the way they define the word.
Yeah.
So you really look at it in one line, right? I mean, it's all gonna be the same time.
That comes back to this point of having a
Yeah, simple template.
simple
That's
template.
right. That's right.
Yeah, I was.
Chelsea, was that?
It's very.
Yeah, that's all become, dam removal.
All right,
It's all at the same time, I mean, it's not like done in one phase and
And
then.
then you're later.
Active touch work and all of
Yeah,
that.
it's all.
I wanna keep this moving.
Got it.
Any other big, yeah, no,
Just
great.
two things. One is in the dredging piece, I know you've addressed it by saying it's really hard. But the fact that you're basically going down an additional meter in the dredging. It would really help if you could have some sort of stab at what that's going to do to the surface area, because I don't know whether it's going to make a minimal difference or it's going to half it. And that really affects how I would look at it. So I don't know how you can go about doing it.
Let an engineer figure that out, we don't have that option.
Yeah, well, surely somebody who's good at geometry could probably.
A little more complicated job.
Well, I realize that, but to give a ball.
But
I don't.
Are you volunteering?
Sorry?
Are you volunteering? to
I-
fill out for us?
I barely scraped through on that.
Where's
So,
the problem? Where's the problem?
Okay, so I think the concern here is, we've talked about this as a group, but these are the conceptual dredge areas that are depicted in the proposal, right? And they are based on the 9 foot as opposed to the 12, right? So it'll actually be smaller, right? So we have language, for some reason I'm not
You do
finding it.
have language in there, I couldn't find it.
It's at the end of it's right underneath. It's there should be understood as conceptual approximations only.
Yeah. Right, the conceptual approximations only, the
Can-
sizes are based on, yeah, so it explains everything. Right?
Would it be worth just using words then instead of having the picture if there's a concern about not really?
Oh, I think you keep that picture,
Yeah.
that picture kind of really shows you something.
I'm ambivalent. I'm just throwing
Yeah,
it out.
I would keep that in.
Okay.
I mean, it is conceptual.
Okay.
And,
In a sense, this image is the conceptual tool to understand.
Yeah. No, I just, if there was a concern about it, I don't really care.
I guess the question is like, can we live, it sounds like changing this is be challenging, so we're good enough. Yeah,
If we change the graphic, it wouldn't help the understandable.
yeah.
I wasn't thinking of changing.
I mean, you're right.
I wasn't thinking of changing the graphic, I was just wondering if we could get a sense of, is it gonna make minimal difference or is it gonna cut it in half? Because I can go either way in my head, but then, as I said, I'm really bad at math. Anyway, that was one. The other thing is, in both the minimal action and the dredging with the fish passage. The report says in a couple, from EA, says in a couple of places that the fish are subject to false attraction from some areas, and also on page something or other, page 6. They say bypass channels are prone to attraction problems since the bypass channel will have competing flow attraction from the main spillway. But both groups have gone with the bypass channel anyway. And I think some sort of accounting for that needs to be made.
Yeah. So Malcolm, so how would you say that, I don't think we fully integrated that memo. But it's a good point. I mean, do you have this, like a sentence that you might suggest that could get together?
Well, I think it's fine to say our preference would be for this, but if after analysis, that's, in fact, fish ain't gonna use it, we would have to go for a different option. And then, I don't know whether you need to go as far as presenting the budget range. But I do think that we need to be clear that that bypass may or may not work.
Right. So I'm noting this, I don't have the exact page in front of me, but the suggestion is when fish passage is introduced, either in, I don't know, maybe talk about it. So we put it in the proposal. a sentence basis of like, the task force preference is.
Obviously, it's cheaper.
Yeah, and less
But if we actually use the one we, was cheaper, when we first asked them to look at it, that was the one we asked them to look at. That was the more natural approach. Right, not because you
just
just.
step pool, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Right. So just a sentence naming the task force preference would be step pool, if after further analysis, this doesn't prove possible.
that's,
We might need to show with another option.
Doesn't it, what the risk section?
It doesn't say specifically that because it didn't address what was in the memo.
Well, we could say,
Should add that to them.
Yeah, so we can add it.
yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, but Vicky, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point about, in general, what are the, not unknowns, but sort of the uncertainties of all of these proposals. That, how do we help, the public to understand, you know, when we're saying 38,000 cubic yards is gonna do this, what is the uncertainty with that? If we're saying this fish passage is going to do this, what's the uncertainty with that? If we say the dam removal of the stream is gonna go here, what's the uncertainty with that? Like, each of these has a level of uncertainty, I'm not sure we.
Well, what do you think about, are there any specific suggestions in the,
Somebody asked,
We
me,
have
said, if you say you're going to do one of these,
yeah,
and after you do it,
yeah,
what you said does not happen.
yeah.
Are you going to stay as a task force and come back and fix it?
Yeah.
Yes, because you didn't tell us it was an uncertainty and we kind of believed you. So I feel like we need to somehow get to a place where we can be clear about what are the things that are risks, I guess, with each of these proposals? What are we asking the town to risk when they go down these paths?
So
Like
I think
fish
it's a
passage,
great-
if they go down this fish passage path, what's the risk?
Vicky, it's a great concern, but issues would, we have sections in each of these that list the risks and uncertainties, or we try to lay that out. So I think the question would be, are there specific things that you think need to be changed or added to the drafts to further address any particular risks and uncertainties?
Do we feel like we,
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, that's.
I think what you're referring to is really risk of failure.
yes,
They're not just normal risks, it's like almost fatal flaws, risk, you know, uncertainty. Yeah, if any of these are really subject to high risk of fatal flaws, they should be proposed. But all of them has uncertainties that at this point, we're putting forward these recommendations, so.
In most senses, it's not really that clear. I mean, if you're gonna have, I mean, there's other, community experience, there's all these things which are gonna be very gray. Rather than say one, so there's gonna be a clear failure.
I wanna, again, kind of keep us
Yeah, sure.
on track. Did you tell me, but I feel like, you know, if there's a specific ask on in the risks and uncertainties, I think we're not covering, then let's do that, let's add that. If we don't have that right now, it's just a general wording. Yeah, if there's specific suggestions, we can think about it. But I do wanna just make sure, I know there are a couple other loose ends people have, like Julie, you had one around the cost.
Yes,
Oh,
so on page 4, on the under cost, on the third paragraph, it doesn't include the capital funding, and so I would suggest that where you say the task force recognizes that at present the town has 2.6 million, I would say 2.65 million
Okay.
in remaining, add in capital and CPA funding. That, okay, that has been appropriated for dredging the ponds, and then add in and other improvements. Because some of that CPA money is for dredging and other improvements. And then in parentheses, put 1.69 million and $0.96 million respectively. So that you identify what capital and CPA funds are available. And I just said 2.65 because then those numbers add up.
This is, did I get it right, 1.69 and 0.69? What was
1.69 million and 0.96.
it? 96. So that seems like a factual correction, I didn't know objection. Anyone to?
Have it, just say respectfully, it's not
Respectively.
respectively, not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other like things you can't live with, or just important things that need to be corrected? I'd like to maybe move us towards. All this approved.
Other question.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Do we want to raise that?
Yeah. So also on the costs, in one of them, there's a design cost, and then the other one, it goes, it's 2018 report of cost. Was put into one of them, but all the other things that we take there and include in.
Want to pause or read offline? I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No.
No, it's just me and my pal. I'm sorry.
Okay, we are, when I was looking at it to the owls.
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, Vicky, you're concerned that there's a missing,
Well, the 2018 dredge feasibility report cost has added to the cost of the draft. But there have been other costs we've incurred, PA. I don't know, there is some water costs that we incurred, work, analysis, the 30% report. Going back out and doing the, they went and tested the benefit.
yeah.
Those costs, are they in here somewhere?
Yeah, so people who worked on top, can you clarify how?
I did add 30% design costs and then alternative analysis costs. We give them to, yeah.
Is that
As you see
everything?
there. Huh?
Is that everything we spent?
As far as I was tracking,
But I don't know, something
like if someone.
we should find out.
We said future costs, no, okay?
No,
No, I don't, that's why we're, I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? The whole point is to deal with future costs.
no, because the 2018 report is in here.
I'm saying, change that.
Oh, take that out.
Yeah, and put in just the future costs.
30% the term.
Well, if it's current, okay, but the 2018 report is not current.
I was trying to do things equally, but yeah, that's, I mean, if you want.
I would just say,
Look at it as 30% design, it's fine.
I think so, you know, this is for dredging, right?
I think, again, kind of clean this out. Should we remove the 2018 costs?
Okay, so important question, right, and this is a good observation and good catch by Vicky. So right now, in some of the proposals, there are actually, and I haven't been totally clear on that tonight. There are actually some past costs, right? So for example, in dredging, it talks about the 2018 report. In dam removal, it talks about the cost to develop a 30% design. Those are included in the cost of dredging. The proposal is, the bill is suggesting, let's be consistent, not include any already incurred costs for any proposal, just forward-looking costs, what this is gonna cost in the future.
I think that.
Back those out, yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yes, one clarification, 30% design for dam removal should be included. So that's a current cost, that's a cost.
Well,
Why is that so funny, Malcolm?
No, I think Keith's on a good point, that if something that would be necessary to advance the project has already been done and paid for, then being able to say that's gonna be avoided. I agree that when we compare the tables of the decision point that we're at now, it should be all of future costs, because that 30% design is a sunk cost, and if that design's not used, it's gone. We don't get it back. But I do think that being able to, and I think looking forward to the, sort of final report of this task force in general, being able to say what was spent on Warner's Pond is a useful bit of information to have anyway, regardless of what option or even, even the expense for running this task force is a good thing to capture someplace, so we can look back and say, in 2024 and 2025, we spent a certain amount of money trying to figure this out, and that's a useful piece of information independent of all proposals.
Well,
things have progressed differently, you might start with a task force that leads to recommendation, that leads to a 30% design, 60% design, 100% design. So the fact that 30% design started first is was a little bit like jump the gun. So that is money that needs to be spent to get to 100% design. I don't, because it was already spent, I don't think it's like, I wouldn't think of it as sunk cost that we shouldn't categorize and account for. I'm fine with taking out the 2018 dredging and feasibility study and whatever else we paid EA to do their preferred alternative analysis report. That's fine.
So then you're showing the sunk cost on the dredging too. And you're allocating the cost of this task force between.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we have, if that logic is, we have to more or less.
30% is a design document, like you can't get to 100% design without 30%.
Yeah, but if you include that cost, then you also have to include the cost of what it was spent already even for 100% design on dredging. You have to include all the cost that was.
We don't have 100%
So
design.
whatever it was spent.
So.
Yeah, the sunk cost.
To get the estimate you're talking about, right?
No, I'm just thinking, if you use the sunk cost on one scenario and one option, then you have to show the sunk cost on all options.
We don't have 30% design costs for dredging.
So
They don't
we
exist.
do have it for the permitting and the 100% design for the dredging.
Yeah.
Not for.
That's what you're
Could I
talking
just
about.
ask,
I know,
Not
yeah.
for.
Why does
50,000
this
cubic
matter?
yards.
Yeah, so.
Why does it matter?
Yeah,
It's not even, it's not even.
But I think the question is this worth holding up our conversation for, right, around it, we're gonna, I think my understanding, right, and I might be wrong, but that we intended to kind of put ourselves at the present moment and have information that is, what is it gonna cost to move forward with these different proposals moving forward?
Yes.
If there are costs in there that looks like there's some of them removal and dredging that aren't that, I think the proposals to back those out. And I guess the question is, Keith, I think there was a suggestion by Mark that you're raising sort of past costs. Seems like something important to name for the public, maybe something we could put in our final report.
Right.
To just make sure that that's clarified and the bases are covered. It's helpful to get through this, maybe in this report, we name something like. We specify, we only include forward-looking costs, we do not include previous design work for any of the proposal. So would that be acceptable to the group, if we did one version of that?
I just want to clarify, we do not have 30% designs for the other proposals, 50,000 cubic yards and 100,000 cubic yards of dredging. We do not have 30% designs.
Right. I understand. How much money are we talking?
Yeah, but I think, you sound like you're okay with that.
I am, just need to clarify that because that's not what was being said.
Yeah, for facts, so.
I got it.
Yeah, we
We'll
got.
pull those out.
We'll pull those out. Yeah. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
I do have a cost question, the additional costs paid by others, the StarMed costs on here.
What page are you on?
Come from Star-
Which option are you in?
This is the dredging option,
Yes,
page 43.
yes, those are my comments.
No question, should we include costs incurred by others outside, and if so, where do those costs come from?
They came from the Sumco and Charter estimates.
We asked them. but-
We asked them to provide that
Yeah,
information.
so
right?
I think you need to say that, I think if StarMed will look at that, they say, wait a second.
Yeah,
Right.
There's
That's-
estimated costs going.
estimated costs to be paid by others and leave it at that.
Estimated cost, maybe I would not attribute that to a StarMed quote, because they.
Yeah.
they-
I see.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
just by others, don't say StarMed.
yeah.
We don't-
I think by others is fine.
They
That's sort of,
came from others, they didn't come from some-
Yeah, the
Yeah.
point of excluding it would be that if for some reason they're not paid by others, they would revert back to the project.
right.
No, I think he's just saying.
No, I'm just saying, attributing it to StarMed.
Yeah, I took that,
Yeah,
but they should stay in there, they just,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is that a concern, just taking out StarMed and just saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sounds like we're good on that.
Yeah.
I think the last issue that I'm hearing, and I just want to know the time, like I'd love to know what's.
Yeah.
Is this question of how we do with the escalator.
Yes.
Right,
So.
so you name what we did, Chris.
So with the escalation costs, we had in our dredging estimates, there was an escalation cost added in. Okay, and so then looking at all the numbers, the dredging had an escalation cost detailed on it, but dredging, dam removal did not. And Bill, you did not either.
No.
So in the interest of trying to make things even across the boards, in our small group, we said, well, let's add a 10% escalation cost to all of them. But then there was further conversation, and we came to the conclusion that why should we even add this in? What's the difference between adding 10% in, leaving it off? We just want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
So if you take the escalation costs out and go through the estimates that we received, period, clearly they are estimates. They are based on the little information that we have given to Sumco or Charter or whoever, BA, to come up with this information. So
If I could shed light on how we would normally see an estimate in my world, you either see it in today's dollars, and it says, this estimate is based on 2025 dollars.
Yeah.
All these estimates are on 2025, there is no escalation included, or you do we've been asked to start this project in 2027, and therefore we've included a 15% escalation per year, which is the market rate, and so therefore it's 15% and 15 plus 15. There is no other way to do it. It's not like, let's just make up an escalation. So I would say we should just go with today's dollar price.
because we're not even there yet.
Yeah, and you can't predict what this kind of escalation is gonna be for these kind of projects.
I just want to, sort of clarify the escalation costs that, I don't have any problem with taking those out and just using today's dollars. But I think that we need to clarify and everybody understands that that's different from contingency costs. And those do differ between different stages of design. So when you're at very, very, very conceptual, you have a very high contingency because there's so many unknowns. And that high contingency is reduced over the phases of the development until you get to 100% bid documents, and then you still have a contingency of, 5 to 10% or whatever, right? Vicky, you're nodding your head.
You would go at a contingency of this kind of conceptual level, you would have like 30% contingency. in
Right.
Right.
stage. So we're
Right.
we're like way
Yeah.
in kind of a weird place.
It's already baked into the estimate.
And some of them have been baked in.
I don't think they are. I
They
don't,
really are.
Are they?
Of course. It's just not called out in the line. We talked about that.
that's what I had understood on the dam removal one, but I,
10% design for dredging, so they have nothing to work with. They built in a lot of cost protection.
Good.
okay, well, we,
I think this place was cost protected.
That's
They
interesting.
didn't account for a contingency on a line item, but they buffered their cost tremendously.
Oh, no, we have no contingency right now.
Yeah.
We have no contingency right
These
now.
aren't escalation, these aren't,
So-
cost escalation.
Yeah, just to bring us back,
No,
for the approach that this small group is suggesting, which it sounds like everyone is on board with, is backing out escalation or put in there for purposes of future dollars,
Mhm.
right? And just keep it $2025, name that explicitly in the text to say that we've done that, right? But we're not gonna go down the road of trying to back out contingencies that are in proposed for
Mhm.
purposes of stage of design.
Yep.
I think that's where we are in the group.
That sounds fun. That sounds good to me.
Okay, so. I think we've gone through no.
so I'm sorry, I just have two other things, and I think that they're very quick. The first is on page 22 and 23, and it talks about the rare turtle, and I would just recommend that the language not say rare turtle, because National Heritage gets very, very funny about mentioning anything that's state listed. So I would just revise on page 22, the second to last, or the last paragraph, just to say stream restoration could be beneficial by extending breeding habitat for strike the, put an A, strike specified,
Right,
and
I'm not with you, Delia, where are you?
page 22, last paragraph.
Here?
Yeah,
Including your, yeah, yeah.
go up, actually.
Fine.
Yeah, down there, you will go up, go up. I got this too. Sorry. I'm not having.
Okay,
Maybe 22.
okay, 22 on the red line or the 23?
You can go down, I can see it. The vocal is under the first. Then removal. Okay, right there. String right last paragraph. Oh, I see it's in that.
Up.
Yeah.
Removing the ones there.
Rare species, right, or a state listed species.
Big statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just state, a state
A
listed?
state listed species.
Okay. Okay, then,
And then down there is state specified rare first.
So put in for, pick up the, put in up. State listed, not specified. Pick up rare, or, and that, put in species.
okay, I'm just gonna, I think we do have another note, we have
You have another one,
a
23,
Yeah.
Okay,
species. Alright,
and then you have another one in 23.
state listed. State
State
listed
listed, rare, state listed species.
State listed. Okay, alright, I see one more turtle reference, no, we're down to 0, okay, perfect.
The other last thing is just that, there's on page 20, page 12. When it talks about basic conversations with natural resources staff and other consultants. I thought I had provided comments on this, but I didn't. So the eutrophication factors. I think I'd just like to provide alternate language to that, instead of saying, so to say, due to factors, take out such as, and to say, including uncertainties in annual rainfall, I think that's true.
Okay,
Temperature fluctuations, drought conditions, and the increasing intensity, frequency, and volume of storms linked to climate change. Additionally, future developments in the upstream watershed remains unpredictable, and the overall complexity of the pond system further complicates the assessments. But we know eutrophication will continue absent successful management actions.
Julie, do you wanna just read that again for everyone? Okay, great, we have it here, just everyone listen, and if anything objectionable, let us know. Okay, so we're gonna say, the yearly progress of beautification cannot be determined due to factors included uncertainties in annual rainfall, temperature fluctuations, drought conditions, and the increased intensity, frequency, and volume of storms linked to climate change. Additionally, future development in the upstream watershed remains unpredictable, and the overall complexity of the pond system further complicates the assessment. But we know eutrophication will continue to happen, so that's one minute of action. So seems to be more comprehensive. Well, any objections?
No,
Great, thank you, David.
so back to the turtle,
Okay,
page 5,
I think I got them all.
did you?
No, because I did a control F for turtle.
Okay, if we're, not specifying the state listed reptile, is it wrong to list a state listed pied-billed grebe as well?
no, the problem for the turtle, I think.
No, it is, are pied-billed grebe, are they state listed?
It is state
It is
listed,
state
yes.
Okay, I would just say it's state listed. Yeah, I wouldn't say pied-billed grebe.
I thought the issue with the turtle was being.
Is it?
People coming.
It is.
Well, it is, but is it, I don't think Warner's Pond is mapped for pied-billed grebes. Because
That's there, but they're seen all the time.
yeah, but they Heritage gets concerned when it's a listed species that they have map records of. So maybe it's okay to say pied-billed grebe, because I mean, it's helpful to have that information.
So so every time we reference state listed species, we want to say,
I would say every time you reference species that are mapped by the state, and well, they don't have occurrences of that in their database. Somebody should report it. But yep, yeah, but Heritage doesn't have it, and so they don't have that as a mapped rare habitat for
I think they're
pied-billed.
chasing things down more.
Yeah.
I agree. I think
I think
the turtle reason is very important because people collect them. We don't want them
Yeah.
out there collecting those
Yeah.
turtles. I think everything else, as long as it's a state listed then claim they're there, I think that's okay.
People collect birds' eggs. I think you do have to be careful with that. If it's-
Really, I think you're stretching it.
I'm not stretching it at all.
Would we just say state listed species instead of a state listed species?
I don't know what's right.
That's, wood turtle is all that's mapped. That is it. That is the only stateless species that Heritage has records of.
Well, maybe I can suggest for now, good enough if we wanted to refine this language and add in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Sure. I think it was Malcolm's suggestion, so it's really a question for me. Malcolm,
Well,
so it sounds like we're just not sure how to handle it. Are you okay just?
oh, yeah, no, I was just, I didn't know the answer, that was it.
All right, yeah, Paul.
One more little thing. The bullets on page 23, risks and uncertainties under urgent. The last bullet calls out PFAS. I'm not saying that's not enough, but I think in the previous suggestion, I want to expand that into hazardous chemical concentrations in soil or unknown. Calling out PFAS is.
I see.
We have to analyze chemical concentrations, it's clear. We have to do-
Here, the one that I'm
I think
thinking
it's
of is
uncertainty.
PFAS and other.
I drew on that has
They say we're.
hazardous
Ah,
chemicals, concentrations, unknown. I won't call out PFAS and.
so we just say like concentrations of hazardous chemicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay?
The PFAS is in there, but other things are in there too.
And I think that, I'm sorry, but I think that's also on, one more page where PFAS is specifically called out.
So we say, make PFAS and other hazardous substances.
Are you on page 16?
Arsenic was called out in the report, the feasibility report and dredging report, like numerous times. I'm wondering if that
Yes,
is
helium.
different and other.
It's PFAS rolled out, and result.
No.
So I would call, I just.
When we pull out that feedback, I think Stan pointed out that it has yet been.
It's not on plastic, we have the results on, I think, one probe from arsenic.
Right.
But it was never tested against PFAS, that was.
Yeah, but it's not even clear there are gonna be regulations.
Yeah, no, that's, but
Yeah.
no, the main
I
regulation.
would bury that into.
Yeah.
Into hazardous.
So do we want to then here as well just say testing for hazardous substances? We're good with this?
I'm not saying sure, but important. I'm
Okay.
saying-
Yeah.
Put it back.
All right. Okay, are we good? Okay. Anyone not, so we have a bunch of changes, right? Most of these are fairly straightforward. The one thing that is a little bit of work, is the tables, right? Do you want to comment on them?
Yeah, are we moving on?
We will in a minute, yes.
So page
Yeah.
24 talks about greenhouse gases, we need to talk about that.
Okay. So. This was a, a discussion, I understood based on the conversation in the last. Task force meeting that folks had kind of said we put in that qualifier. And we're okay, but, if there's marginal qualifier.
Marginal, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the current text. Right, this proposal would eventually result in an overall marginal decline in greenhouse gas emissions and then the explanation.
That's true. That's weird.
Right. So is that something that people are still comfortable with?
It's
Yeah.
just one of the specific things in the criteria that we're trying to measure, so. I think this is a lead into what I was saying, I think this is way too complicated, we don't have a good answer for this. Why is it in the criteria? Like, we should probably be discussing. Do we really want to spend the time to try to explain greenhouse gas emissions? Post removal, it's just. And how could we possibly account for that?
Yeah.
It's insignificant, actually.
So just to the specificity of,
But then the criteria, it's like a whole.
so to the specificity of why it's in criteria is, it went through like. But it asked for, one of the criteria in the like actual Envision Concord was to like. sorry. They had it was to, man, I'm still, it was to use the Concord's,
It was a reduced
Yeah.
dependence on
Yeah.
fossil fuels or something like that.
yeah, it was, we pulled it specifically from the Concord, like we put in the 3, and that's why we had the weird one around, chemical dependence on synthetics, like they were like these 3 specific things that had been called out in the Concord.
Envision.
It was like the Envision Concord point specifically to like, here, make sure you hit the sustainability goals, and those were the 3, so we were kind of trying to spell them out. If that helps, why it was a specific,
No, I get it.
criteria,
I'm
okay.
really questioning why we're doing that, because that plan is for townwide assessment and mitigation for, emitting carbon at a townwide level. I mean, there's so many wetlands in town that emit CO2 and methane as it is. It's just kind of, it's insignificant, too hard to assess accurately. It's confusing, and it doesn't really help what we're trying to summarize for the residents.
Yeah.
About Warner's Pond.
I think that if we're going to start dismantling the criteria that we approved a significant period of time ago, we're really going to go on a slippery slope. We approved the evaluation criteria as a group after small group put them together. It may be awkward and it may be difficult, or it may not be, but I really am not comfortable if we're going to start suddenly re-examining that, 8-10 months later.
I want to just take a step back on this. Just to be clear, when we do our evaluation of the proposal against the criteria, it's not going to be some simplistic score system, right, where every one of these gives you 5 points, right? If something really doesn't matter and we think it's marginal, we can treat it as marginal, right? And that will be part of our evaluation. So I think, don't worry about that, right? I think the question is, are we okay? Is this good enough, right? The way that we've addressed it in this document, that we're comfortable, we can live with sending this forward with this paragraph.
Yeah, I just want to say again, even though, I may not, think I would put it in there necessarily. If that group thinks it's okay, it doesn't do any harm. And it seems to me it may represent something, so.
I agree. The source, we had this conversation last meeting. I suggested the word marginal for the same reasons, and I was happy with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd leave it at that.
Yeah, I would too. Even though I see your point, I'd let it go.
I think it warrants, not now.
Yeah.
I'm good with the language in there, but it does warrant a much broader discussion.
Yeah.
Just on the definition of marginal in this circumstance.
Well, the whole thing
But
needs a broad discussion, but I think we should leave it like that.
absolutely, I agree totally. Don't want to
Okay.
get to that.
So I'm gonna just check in now. I think we've gone through a lot of suggestions. We've improved this document today. Right, I just want to test, we're out of time for this, right? So we worked it as much as we can for tonight. Can everyone live with this document?
Yeah, I want you to show hands, just make
Okay.
sure that everyone.
Right. Well,
It's important.
well, it's important.
It is.
Okay, let me ask you this way. Can anyone not live with this? Okay. Put it on, anyone online? Okay. So we can move forward with this document with the
Yeah.
changes suggested.
Changes.
Congratulations. I'm I think great.
Really, this is, it might be worthy of a vote.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the record that we all agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So, chairs,
I move that we accept the document as amended for purposes of moving forward.
Second. All those, very good.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And Jack?
Yeah.
I,
David?
David?
He had to go.
Okay, you got
So we, as the planning team, are gonna take this back. I think this is on us, the planning team, to implement the changes.
Thank
We're gonna do it. We're gonna get this out to the public, for a public meeting,
Yeah.
okay? We may need to check in with a, address, I think we may need to just confirm with Cameron Legal that we're okay. We'll figure out how to do that and make sure we abide by the necessary everything. All right, but we will move this forward and send it out to the public. So thank you all. Okay, we have one more. I want you all to just take a minute. You just did something really hard, right? Redlining in a group is not fun, right? It's necessary, but not fun. So we did it, we got through it. We're gonna now talk about the public meeting, right? And this is what this is, the whole purpose has been to create this, to enable us to get here, to go to the public and get the valuable feedback that we think we will get, that will help us make our decisions and drop our recommendations. So this is important, right? How we do this. I just want to flag that. We're not going to talk about state taxes tonight. We'll do that moving forward. So the planning team had a chance to get together and think about a proposal to bring to you all about how to do this. Okay, we would like the group to let us know at a high level, do we have this right? Okay, and then can we agree on how to move forward to kind of make it actually happen? Okay, what that's going to look like. So first things first, date, time, location, March 13th. So that's a little more than a month from now, right? Townhouse, 7 to 9 p.m. Okay, that's what we're looking at. We will have in-person plus a live stream and Zoom or webinar. We can do that, Jillian?
We can do both.
Okay, so we're gonna have a online observation and question asking. People online can participate. Okay. We're gonna do outreach to the bridge, a townwide postcard with a QR code. We're gonna link to the task force website and the proposals document. Library, social media, obviously our website. We would invite you all to advertise this with your constituencies to get the word out. Right, we really want people to come and share their feedback. Here's the proposed format, okay? We imagine a welcome, what we're doing here today, right, all of that good stuff. Then we would have some presentations from elected members, designated task force members, okay? Our chairs are likely gonna be the ones to lead us off, right? Describing who we are, what we did, what was our mandate, how did we carry that out, what are we gonna share with you today? Then one representative from each work group would share a brief presentation. We have a little template for you around what specifically to go into this that summarizes your proposal. Okay. We then take questions on that proposal and then move on to the next. So each proposal would have around 25 minutes to share and do Q&A. So we're imagining 10 minutes presenting, 15 minutes Q&A, and like a reasonable allocation of time. So that will take us through about the first hour and a half of the meeting. And then we imagine, look, we're going to get to some questions, not all of them, right? People are going to want to give some feedback and not everyone is going to have a chance to talk in front of the room. So let's do a kind of open house where we set the different work groups up in different areas of the room. We have even like some posters there that could have like some bullet summaries of your proposal, maybe, a picture or two, right? If that seems important and helpful. Task force members are stationed in those places and members of the public can go and ask you about your proposal. We also have spaces for them to leave comments using sticky notes. We have some very basic, simple prompts on those, not leading, right? Just what do you like about this? What concerns do you have? What else would you like to know about it? Right? Simple questions, people can leave their feedback. That'll happen for about a half hour, okay? Then we'll close the meeting. We will write up feedback we heard, we'll compile the sticky notes, share that all back to you, and we'll have a chance to debrief and talk about what we learned. Proposed roles. Co-chairs are our meeting hosts, right? CBI, I am available to facilitate the large group dialogue, right? Work groups would develop presentation slides and poster bullets, designate presenter, and clarify who's going to answer questions in a large group. We also have EA who can be available if we want for technical questions related to their analysis. So EA said, someone asks the work group a question, you don't know the answer, or it's related to a technical piece from EA, we could have them there to answer those kinds of questions. But we think that the work group should be the first people kind of who have the floor. We want this to be like you meeting the public and being there in front of them. Other pieces, so just in terms of what we suggest for a very simple template for these proposals, it's basically just the main headers that are currently in the proposal document. So what are you proposing? What's your proposal? Right? What's your rationale? Like, what are the benefits that this could bring? What are the costs? What are some risks and uncertainties that we need to name? And maybe just briefly, like, here's what we considered, but we're not proposing, and we just thought, let's include that because people are getting asked, right? So let's get ahead of it, name that. Posters, right? Some top bullets, not the full content of the slide, just top bullets, probably, you know, related to the proposal costs, risks, and uncertainties. Maybe you include like your image, right? If it shows something important that demonstrates what your proposal looks like. Preparation would involve work groups developing their slides in poster language. So you would need to meet most likely and stuff that unless you fully want to designate one person. We'd ask you to share that with the planning team by March 3rd. So we can just take a look and make sure that we are aligned, that when we go out there and present, all the work groups are going to look like we've kind of come from the same factors. Okay. So if we need to kind of check in and work a little bit with the work groups to make that happen, we have a week. Because then we would need to get this done for printing. We're gonna have posters on March 10th. That's the suggestion, right? The proposal, and I think we are hoping that this sounds good to you and sort of roughly what you were imagining this would look like. And I did think in terms of sort of what's we want to just clarify, like, does it sound good to you? And we might give you a minute or two just to meet in work groups to decide like, who's going to develop a slide proposal, who's going to present, assuming this all sounds good to you, right? Are you going to meet? If so, when? And maybe some other issues that people want to talk about that we can discuss. So I'm going to pull this down for now. I'm happy to go back to any slides, but I think the question is overall reaction. Did we hit the mark? Planning team, does it sound like a good approach? Yeah, Paul.
I think this is perfect, very good. Just one question on the outline of the benefits of each proposal. Is that what you mean by rationale?
Yes, right. That's it's currently the header in the proposal to rationale, that has not changed.
Yeah, rationale / benefits.
Yes, that's what we need. Got it. So we can make that rationale.
Thank you.
What we intended. Yes. But we had that conversation.
Yeah, I also think this makes sense. Can I propose though that if you guys are working on some sort of streamlined cost template and using top line stuff, put into the proposal, we just like the work groups just use that and not try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, that would be good.
That's great.
That's helpful. Yeah.
And then in reaction to who we have there, I think EA, has some technical expertise. We had other experts. I worry that we don't have enough time to have, we have wildlife, and fisheries person that would talk about fish and wildlife. Those are technical issues that may come up. We had somebody on dam removal, come in and talk to us about expertise stuff. So to me, given the timeline, which is so like we have a half hour for people to really dig in, I think it's us for this one. I feel like we need to hear their questions, and then if there's like 75 questions on EA's technical stuff, we might have to come back to it, but there might be 5 on that, 5 on dam removal technical stuff, 5 on fish and wildlife, 5 on, and we might have to answer a lot of technical questions, and we might need other people. It's not just EA who's going to answer questions on our proposals. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Sure, good.
Picking up on that, it might be useful in the introduction for the chairs or somebody to have just a list of experts that have been consulted along the way by the task force or expertise that's been accessed. So rather than having that in a lot of different places, we could just coordinate.
So slide in the introduction of who we spoke to. Right.
What have we learned?
Those are the kind of, sort of, I assume that that's gonna include some kind of overview of the process that we're on in who we've been impacted.
So any other kind of issues on this? I think there is a question about consultants who are there.
So the only thing that I would add to the conversation is that there have been a lot of questions around the channel geometry and location. And the selection of the reference reach that EA used. And I think those are questions that, you know, only they can answer, and that information is in the basis of design report, but if there's, you know, further drilling down into that, I mean, I think some of the, if the dam removal, you know, questions that might come up and, you know, that we heard from, DER and some of the fisheries information that we heard from DNF, we may or we may not be able to respond to those questions, but I do think that some of those technical questions that people have a lot of concern around, particularly with, you know, the channel geometry and those sorts of things, it may be helpful to have, you know, representatives from EA there to help answer.
And we can also make a log of those questions and answer them, you know, after the meeting and get those answers out.
We could, but I think, to
Because I
me,
think
what
that
I
is
see this
important.
public forum as being is that we're there to obtain feedback from people, and if we're getting a lot of questions, then I think the feedback is less there, right? So we want to take that feedback and then develop recommendations.
No, no, I'm saying we may not be able to answer all the questions because of the nature or the volume there, but I think
Yeah.
they probably all deserve an answer, so who's ever, will be recorded, we should capture those.
Right.
And just in the context of, can we handle everything? No, we may not have the expert there.
Perhaps
may
it's
run out-
like, we only have a half hour.
We may run out of
People are
time.
at 3 different tables. If somebody's asking the technical questions at 3 different tables, we're not gonna be able to, EA's not gonna answer all of them at 3 different tables. So-
EA would just be there,
Yeah.
because they'd be on. I mean, I would just say, like, on this question, there's maybe a couple of ways to think about it. If I were a member of the public coming here and I had a technical question, right, and I knew that there was someone who could answer it, but they weren't at the meeting, I'd just be like, well, why didn't you just answer my question here, right? At the same time, I do think we've seen in past meetings, not meetings that I've been part of with EA, but there can be a dynamic between them and the public that we don't want this meeting to be. We want this to be task force members front and center, right? So I would just say, I would suggest as a best practice, I would recommend having your main technical experts at the meeting available to address any questions. As a facilitator best practice, and I'm gonna be doing this, it would be on me to really encourage people to maybe step in if a dynamic emerges that we don't want, to make it about direct your questions to the task force. If there's a key technical issue that we need to resolve or you really want to bring up and get an answer, now, yeah, we have EA here, they can step up. Yeah, sure.
Somebody says, can you explain to me how, you know, I guess to deal with the channel location, when would that question
So
happen? and answer?
the way that it would be is in this first hour and a half, right? As you mentioned, it's about a half hour per proposal, right? So this would be in the this would be in the big room. So anyone can stand up, we'll have a microphone, it will be like that, right? Ask their question, we'll probably do a time limit, right? We want to get lots of voices. And they'd ask it, and I'd be like, you know, task force, if there's an answer you feel like you can provide a response on, right? Or is it something kind of we need our technical expert to chime in, right? If they want to come back and get into a kind of dialogue and argument with EA, I'll just shut it. If that's not. There was provided a response, are there other questions you want to direct to the task force, right? And we feel like that, right? I mean, that's what I kind of think I'm being asked to do, but you tell me, right? Yeah, Paul.
My point was, I think that this is a really important chance to engage with the public. We're gonna capture all the questions, we may not be able to answer them there. And the questions during the formal section, the questions during the sticky note exercise, we need to capture those
Yeah,
and make sure that we
absolutely.
answer them.
If we can't answer them, then they need to get here.
Yeah, at some
Yeah.
point,
Yeah,
but communicate back
Yeah.
out, whatever form it is, because we're not really able to answer all the questions there because of volume, time, or technical issues. I mean,
Maybe the answer is, that's such an interesting question. We
We're gonna get
wrestled with that for
Yeah.
so long. We talked about it with a couple of experts.
Mhm.
We looked at it from these 5 different points of view. Here's where we landed. on this. because of these 5 reasons, that to me would be a better engagement than, let me show you the expert who
Yeah.
some of you may like and some of you may not, and let's see what happens, and you'll interfere.
Yeah,
And
I
also,
agree with that.
Don't discount the answer, we don't know the answer to that, but we're trying to get you that information.
Mhm. You're worried about the dynamic.
Yeah, it doesn't need to happen in this meeting.
Yeah.
We can say, we actually wrestled with that same question. And we put this recommendation to the report because here's how we got to this recommendation. That's what I think they want to hear, like,
Yeah.
how did you get to this recommendation? Like, what did you take as your
Mhm.
path
Mhm.
that we need to hear from you? Because you did the same thing we're doing, which is the public. We're wrestling, you wrestled, tell us how you got to renting.
Yeah, the-
I generally agree with that. The one thing I kind of think about is there are some places in this proposal where we kind of push it off to EA. We're like, well, we never agreed. This is what EA says. And so for that reason, like, I feel like it might.
And that's what we said.
But, and I think this is someone else's point, that if there was an expert that could have been there to be like, this is why we said this, then. You know, like, I feel like, I don't know.
So. Again, like, your guys' decision, I think. From where I sit. We would recommend having a technical expert there, but a strong message to, when we talk about the purpose of the meeting, how the way we direct questions. And we really want you to engage with task force members on these, right? First line of defense would always be to go to the task force, and if you really can't answer it, we can bring them in.
I'm, when I've been over, we talked about it, I still feel ambivalent. I don't want them to be a lightning rod, I don't want them to dominate the meeting, and I'm afraid, that can erupt. And then we're in a defensive, you're in a defensive position, shutting people down.
Yeah.
I think I like Paul's notion that we just, this is our meeting, we talk to it, if there are questions, we'll get back to you. I still think that makes sense, but I could go with all of them, I can live with either.
And I totally get it, I mean, it's not my choice, but,
We should answer most of these because we're making a recommendation.
Yeah,
Like, there shouldn't be a lot of questions, but we are actually making a recommendation.
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I think we have to, this is an introduction, we have to narrow the questions to what we're discussing in the presentation, the four walls of this discussion, because there are a lot of questions that can come up with the long-term process outside of this. So I think the balance are sort of when the select board says questions on the agenda. So I think this has to be on the agenda,
Yeah,
which is the meeting, which is the report, which is our report out.
I mean, the overall objective of this, I think, needs to be that we want to communicate the level of information to the community about all 3 of these options so that they can begin to communicate back to us about what their preferences are. And if the comments are, we don't understand that option well enough to decide, which could be a comment, then we need to take that as more work that needs to be done. But I think steering it towards, we're trying to put a choice in front of the community, and these are the things that we think are relevant to that choice.
okay, so where do we move forward now?
Take a straw vote.
What's that?
Take a straw vote. Who wants EA there?
All right, so who would like EA there? Let's see, a show of hands. 1, 2. Who would not like EA there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me check in online. Jeff? Are you raising your hand or Jeff?
I think it'd be beneficial to have EA present.
I think one thing I noticed is the dam removal group seems to want that.
Yeah.
I could go either way.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah,
He's
it's fine, I can live with it, I can live with either way, so I'm okay.
But with the other, okay. I mean,
Well, how about asking, who cannot live with EA?
who cannot live with EA there? Anyone not live with that? That's a good framing. All right, let's move forward, okay? We'll have them there in a backup role.
And they're gonna be on Zoom, and
You're gonna be on Zoom.
So you're not gonna have to sit there, okay.
Okay, do we wanna, to take a minute to just give small groups a chance to schedule something?
Yes.
Okay, okay, let's do that. Okay, so we're going to go in, so give each person a chance to name what's your next step, the developing a proposal, and if you're gonna find a meeting time.
I was gonna suggest, how close are we?
We are close, we're supposed to be ending next.
Oh, well, see, I enjoyed it so much. Why don't we adjourn, go through public
Yeah,
comments? adjourn the meeting.
just talk about when in your process of meeting, we don't need to do that involved.
Right, yeah, we're just gonna choose the date for our meeting, right? Does that have to be public? Doesn't.
No, that doesn't.
No, that doesn't.
No.
You can
No.
just schedule it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, so we're gonna, I think we're gonna move forward with this plan, we're good to go.
Yep.
Not, and I'm gonna turn it back to my co-chairs for our final public comments.
Desire, what are we trying to get out of this meeting? We want to make sure we're getting that. There's feedback on each of the proposals.
Yes.
Which direction people want to go.
Well, I think we're gonna get one, we're not looking for a vote. We're just getting people to tell us what their concerns are, what they're seeing. Here, they can see that their reactions to the three proposals, but we're not asking them to vote on that. I don't think
Just
so.
want to know.
And I meant the important point that what we're really trying to do is get something documented that people can hopefully download and watch, on YouTube over and over again as this conversation goes. So this is an opportunity to introduce the concepts to the people that are there and anybody else who may become interested. So that once we do make a recommendation, they can understand what we decided
That's helpful. Thank you.
around.
All right, having said that,
Yeah.
we're gonna open up for public comments. And again, we'll ask you just to, again, as you see, be courteous and tax, and please keep it within 2 minutes if you can. Any public comments? Yes. Identify yourself.
Should I come up there?
Yeah, please.
Come up here, yeah.
Hear you. Make sure you're-
The owl getting here.
This one's working,
This
so,
is working?
yeah, you just come in here.
Right there, so.
Thanks for not making me welcome.
That's good.
Connie Levine, I live on Stowe Street.
Sorry, can you say your name again?
Connie Levine,
Connie Levine.
Stowe Street, yes.
All right.
I have a couple comments. I'm concerned about the public hearing discussion because I know from experience that public hearings, people in Concord want to ask questions, which is good. You guys can answer the questions. You've done all the work. I have confidence you can answer the question. That's much more effective than having people wandering around looking at exhibits. That's not what happens in a public hearing. So you stand up there, you make your presentations, you answer the questions, and let them give you comments. I mean, that's what the public hearing is about. Sometimes people want to wander around after the fact and look at your exhibits, that's great. But one is not a substitute for the other. You need that feedback from the people, and they need to be able to ask you questions.
I'm telling you, we have that. That's what the majority of that meeting is gonna.
Yeah, because you were right to say, don't do it the other way. You would not get the feedback you need from the public hearing if you do it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had one other comment that I just wanted to make, which had to do with I've been researching and I've got all these management plans were supposed to have been done on the pond. And I wonder if any of this was ever tackled. It doesn't look like it was, so I'd try to be prepared to answer if any of this was done. I mean, I know there's fish ladders attached to the dam, things like that, that were brought up at the June meeting are important, being able to lower it for get the bad plants out of there. There's a lot of things, that were discussed, but you don't get a sense from any of this that anything was actually done based on where it stands now. It sounds like it just.
So
Good
Connie,
recommendations.
there is a timeline on the Warner's Pond Task Force website
Mhm.
that goes through some of the information that you might be looking for.
Yeah, of things actually done. I'm
Yeah,
looking,
no, it says.
was this ever
Yeah.
tried? Did it,
Yes.
did it not work? That's the kind of stuff I was trying to find out.
Right.
I just couldn't find it, but I'll look on, what would it be under?
It's on the left-hand side. Tell me tomorrow if you have trouble
Okay,
finding it.
okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it was a good meeting. Thank you. Mhm.
Anyone else want to speak?
Yeah.
Yes,
Want me to say my name again?
yes, great.
Deanna Feldway, 343 Commonwealth. I really do think that you need 15 or 20 minutes at the beginning. That's called What We Learned, where you go back to the basic FAQs. And what is the quality of the water, meaning is it clean to be in? Can we swim? No, probably not, because it's just so murky and dirty, so it's not gonna be a swimming place. What's the effect of the dam or no dam on flooding? Like all these really basic questions that came up at the first meeting that you could just get right out of the way at the beginning as what we learned. Because otherwise people are gonna ask them again. They'll be frustrated.
That's helpful. Thank you. Anybody else?
Cynthia,
And Dan Stapleton.
This is very short. Mary Weinberg, Hillside Avenue. I had a very interesting conversation with one gentleman who works in West Concord. And he's a member of the Creek Nation. And last time I saw him, I asked him, he doesn't live here, but he knows about Warner's Pond. And I told him what was going on, pro or con, or whatever, against. And his answer was to me that, because I noticed that you use indigenous, it will go back to the way the indigenous people used it and celebrated. He said, Mary, that's not the important thing. And this is what the message I want to give to us all. He said, the important thing is that our history not be forgotten, that it be written down, taught, maybe posted there by one is the history. His Creek Nation has been really treated terribly, and he told me what they're going through. So I think that whatever happens, and hopefully I will always see that pond, he said, that's the important thing, that our story be told, not the part of putting it back to the way it was, that our story be told. And we all know, so I really hope that as a town, we can begin to do that. So that's the way I think we should celebrate the indigenous people, that their story be told.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's someone on here or someone on.
Two people on.
Yeah, yeah. Cynthia, can you identify yourself, please?
Cynthia Katz, 20 Conant Street. Can you hear me?
Here.
I'm a little surprised that there's only going to be one public forum. When EA was doing those meetings, we had multiple meetings, and I really hope that you're going to have more than one. A lot of people have been waiting for the task force to do a public presentation, and I really hope you're going to do more than one meeting. I think that there's a lot of interest out there.
Thank you. I will point out, of course, Cynthia, every meeting is public. That's okay, you're right, we'll do what we can. Someone else had their hand up? Yes, Dan, can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, Dan Stapleton, 20 Conant Street. So I just, first of all, thank you for all the long hours you guys put in. I feel like just watching them has been an effort. So I imagine doing them is pretty good. Now that this thing's kind of getting close to being put out there, I just wanted to give a few follow-up comments. And they're really about the dam removal alternative. Not because I have an opinion one way or the other as to the preference, but more because that's most definitive. There's really no turning back on that alternative. The way there are, there's still options with the other two alternatives. So I feel like it's really important to communicate sort of with clarity and confidence what the expectations will be associated with that alternative. So as Cynthia mentioned, we went through several, over the last few years, several very active public hearings where EA presented detailed conceptual drawings of what would be, what was basically implied to be the condition that will occur as a result of the dam removal alternative. And I know I left those meetings and I know many, many other people left those meetings with that perception being sort of a done deal. And sitting through many of the subcommittee meetings, I can tell you during the task force here that perception is sort of being carried through. And I don't know if that is going to go to now the next town meeting that you're talking about holding to kind of perpetuate that perception. So while I think it's an ideal and it's a goal, I think there's legitimate question as to whether that, specifically the recreational components, which is a 4.5 acre pond and a reasonably navigable stream, will be achieved with the proposed method of construction. And I heard a lot about uncertainty, and uncertainty with each of these alternatives, but those uncertainties are not of the same magnitude, and they're not the same equivalence and consequences. So if there's a legitimate question or uncertainty as to whether that 4.5 acre pond will be achievable with the proposed construction, which might not be known for 2 to 5 years after the dam removal based on the proposed method of construction, I'm hoping that gets communicated. And I would actually even encourage you in advance to perhaps consider getting a statement from EA explicitly laying out what their expectation is so they could, put that out there one way or the other. It exists right now and kind of buried in certain limitations in their report. So I think that's, I think that I would find that valuable. And as a kind of follow up on that, I'd like to also know, is the town committed to providing those amenities, regardless of what the turnout is 2 or 5 years from now? So if we do not have a 4.5 acre pond, will the town commit to constructing that at some time? And will this report indicate what alternatives might be available should that outcome not be achieved? So, I think, like I said, everything has uncertainty, but these are very significant uncertainties. So that's, yeah, and you don't have to answer them now, but, I think as you get closer to the public hearing, the questions are going to get a lot more educated and they're going to get a lot more definitive. So the second comment I had was really about the flooding. And specifically, this type of construction project is going to require a modification of FEMA's flood hazard zone. The analyses that have been done to date are not the analyses that would be required to evaluate what that change to the FEMA flood hazard would be. And certainly Delia can fill you in on this offline. She may know more about it than I do, but there's a process of creation of a letter of map revision that's supporting calculations that go along with that. And my question is, and there may also, in addition to the FEMA flood hazard issue, there may also be a municipal requirement that you can increase the effective FEMA flood hazard base flood, I think, more than a foot than what it's currently effective. So those are big unknowns. I don't, want to promote spending more money, but I would certainly, there are a number of homes that are within that existing FEMA flood hazard zone. Several of people on this panel own homes that are within that FEMA flood hazard zone. And I think it would be, and I will note the flooding is extremely complicated because of the backwater effects from the Assabet. So again, not encouraging you to go spend more time, but I have a question. Would at least a draft of that letter of map revision be available before the decision is made? So people would know if if you're a homeowner and your insurance is going to get affected, will they know that? A third comment, which I think it may come up. I'm not saying it's a statement, and
Okay, go ahead. But make sure,
all right, I'll stop, and I'm trying to give you guys a heads up for what might be coming down the pike here. I don't know that this is a definitive issue per se, but at least I'll mention it. In the report, they show continued erosion down in front of Neshoba Brook Bakery. that is a very sensitive structure in terms of settlement. I don't know if the town will be liable if there is an issue associated with that after the dam is removed. So I'm not stating that that's a problem. I'm just responding to kind of what's in the report. So I think, that should be an issue that probably should be confronted earlier than later. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
All right, well, with no further questions, comments, our business is concluded. And during the meeting at 8:56.